Hello, and welcome back to another episode of Mona's Rants. I am your host, Mona Sheikh. Hope you guys had a nice weekend. I had an interesting weekend. After a while, it's been a long time, I decided to visit a friend in Orange County in Newport Beach yesterday. And let me tell you what a freaking shit show that was. Like, in West Hollywood, everybody's like really conscientious. There's signs everywhere, wear your mask, social distancing. I went to Newport Beach. They couldn't have not given a bigger fuck you to COVID than anything. Nobody's wearing masks. Nobody's social distancing. Restaurants don't have signs that says mandate mask. Nothing. Every people are running in the street. Beaches are packed. So I was just like, we can't even really go out. It almost feels like the whole place is infected. It was just bizarre. It was like as if I was in a different country. It was just bizarre. But anyways, and it really got me worried. I was like, man, we're going to have this pandemic for a while, mainly because people are ignorant, they're douchey, and they don't care about other people's well-being. And it just really broke my heart. James is here. Hi, James. Nice to see you. Happy Monday. James said, less than 40 hours to go. Amen to that. Tim said, hello. Hiya, Tim. Nice to see you. Tim said, can't wait to see the orange ape is gone. Yes, cannot wait. But today, I have a very special guest. He is a friend. He is lovely. He is incredible at what he does. And I really wanted to take the time to talk about real estate because that's a very big conversation that has been happening, as far as like mortgage forgiveness and like rent forgiveness and now more and more companies are not using commercial real estate. I mean, they're saving so much overhead by just permanently telling their employees to work from home. So I wanted to ask, like, God forbid, is this going to cause another like market crash? What's going to happen? So I wanted to bring an expert who's also a dear friend of mine. He is the owner of the Collective Realty in West Hollywood and a very successul real estate agent. My very amazing friend, Anthony Bowen.
Hi, everybody. Hi, Mona.
Nice to see you.
So nice to see you. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, you're welcome. Am I echoing by any chance on your end?
No, am I?
Okay. Perfect. No, you're perfect. You're perfect. First of all, how are you feeling? I know that you had not been feeling well, so I just wanted to check in with you.
Yeah, no, I'm doing really well. I started getting sick at the beginning of COVID around March for 6 months, and I never found out if it was COVID or not, and it was really scary. So, when you're talking about these people in Orange County, it's just like, gosh, guys, take this seriously. I mean, we're healthy, right? But we can get sick. I've had friends in the hospital who are the same age as us, and it's serious. So we got to be really careful. We're not done yet. We're almost there. So especially right now, just like squeeze it out a little bit more.
Exactly. I have a friend of mine, perfectly healthy, in his 40s, had to go to the emergency. Got COVID, couldn't breathe, had to go to the emergency. So, it's a real thing that's happening, and it's really concerning. So, and yet here we are. But I wanted to ask you, Anthony, about, you're a real estate agent. You have your successful real estate agency for a while now, the Collective Realty. And I wanted to ask you, like, all this talk, I mean, all these commercial buildings are empty. Like, they're all up for lease. What happens? Like, more and more companies, like Microsoft, for instance, which is a massive corporation, multi-billion-dollar industry, they came out and told their employees that they can work permanently from home from this point on. So all those buildings, all that overhead is gone. They're going to get to save all that money. So what does that mean? Is all these factors, are they going to contribute to another like real estate market crash? Like, what are your thoughts?
Well, there's two markets, right? There's the commercial market and the residential market, and they're very different. Microsoft is not the only company that is allowing people to work from home. There's many of them. Twitter is huge too. They announced that months ago, but many more companies are starting to do that now. I have friends who are attorneys that are working in downtown LA, and they said they had 3 floors before. They narrowed it down to 1 floor. And a lot of people are working from home and are only going in for certain meetings or certain days. And they anticipate that happening moving forward. They've given up their 2/3 of their lease. So yeah, commercial real estate's definitely going to be hurting for a while. If you own commercial spaces, yeah, it's going to be rough. But for most of us, right, we're business owners. We want to create business and create wealth. This could be a huge opportunity to get into commercial space, whether it's a storefront, or an office space that you need your own private space to work out of, or a studio to film in and create a space to be a studio. All of these different options are going to become more affordable to us moving forward. So I think for most people, it's going to be a good thing. If you own commercial real estate, it's not a good thing, but yeah.
Right. I mean, do you feel like do you think these commercial properties that are just sitting empty and have been sitting empty for a while, it's going to be a year, come March, it's going to be a year, like if you've been empty, do you think they're going to turn into residential places?
I would hope so. I mean, I'm a huge advocate of building more housing. You know, there's no way that our housing is going to become affordable unless we build a lot more housing. So we need that. We need, you know, some of these older buildings to turn into some type of residential. And there are some bills that are out in California right now that are trying to make that happen. So we'll see what happens. I'm a big lobbyist for any type of homeownership issues. So I stay really up to date with that. I go to Sacramento and DC trying to lobby for these types of things. And yeah, if we could get some of these buildings to turn into residences, that would be the best use of space, you know, for all of us. Yeah.
Right, right. I mean, prices really haven't dipped that much, Anthony, as far as LA.
No, they've come up. I mean, if you would have asked me last year in March, you know, what do you expect the end of this year to be like? I would have been like, yeah, prices will be down 20, 30%, huge crash. Our economy is falling apart. This is going to be crazy. And then when you look at it on the residential side, prices were up in LA over between 10 and 15%, depending on what area you live in. So homes were 10 to 15% more expensive by the end of 2020 compared to before the pandemic. It's crazy, and it's happening because there's just not a lot of inventory that's out there right now.
Right.
So people aren't selling unless they need to. We already had an inventory problem before COVID. People were just not wanting to sell because they couldn't afford to move anywhere else. So the only people who were selling were those who were, you know, having to sell. So it was tough, and yeah, prices did come up. Commercial, you know, I renewed my lease in the middle of the pandemic for my space here in West Hollywood, and the only thing I was able to get out of it was to have my rent not increase. So I was able to keep the same base rent that I have for the next 3 years without my rent going up. So that was definitely a plus, but they weren't willing to reduce the rent or do anything else like that. A lot of these, you know, big building landlords they have the money, they could hold out. And if it means not having a tenant for a while, waiting till they get a tenant at full market rate or whatever they think that full market rate is, they'll wait. So I think we're going to see a lot of empty spaces, you know, also for a while.
Yeah, you know, I was in Culver City, and I was passing through Culver City, saw this really beautiful, like, commercial building, and just empty. Every floor was empty. And I was like, wait, are they going to turn this into residential? They have to. Like, who's going to occupy this?
Yeah, right? It's going to be tough. I mean, residential would be the optimal thing to do. I mean, it's really sad too, even around here in West Hollywood, since like the whole BLM movement, a lot of us boarded up our doors because there was a lot of graffiti and things that were happening in our neighborhood. And some of those businesses that were shut then, they're still boarded up, and nothing's changed and nothing's happened. And I'm like, are they still in business? They're just not working out of them? Or did they go under and they're just not going to reopen? So they're still boarded up. It's a weird thing to see. Yeah, it's a different city right now.
It's very strange to see it in our neighborhood because our West Hollywood is just such a hustling, bustling neighborhood, right?
Yeah.
And to see like stores boarded up or buildings boarded up, it's just bizarre, you know? It feels like you're like in Detroit or something, you know? Just like, where am I?
Yeah, and I'm curious. I don't know what it's like in all the other cities. Is it worse? Is it the same? I mean, I'm guessing it's probably very similar.
Yeah.
Type of thing, yeah.
I was reading an article on CNBC. It said that the home prices, they said that the smaller metropolitan markets like Indianapolis, Kansas City, Boise, Austin, Cleveland, Cincinnati, Memphis, and Pittsburgh are seeing some of the strongest price gains in the nation. And they're talking about like that nationally home prices rose a remarkable 8.4% in October from a year. And that's they said that's up from a 7% gain in September. And it's the largest 1 month move in over a decade.
Yeah, I totally believe it. And a lot of those cities are the more affordable cities. They have bigger homes, more space. They're not the big urban centers like San Francisco, New York, and LA, where we're here and we're living in such small places where, a $500,000 condo, one bedroom is so small. And
That's
in
right.
Atlanta and in Austin, you can get a house on an acre, for that. I don't know about Austin anymore, but
Austin is
you
very
know what I mean.
expensive. Austin is very
Yeah.
expensive.
Yeah, it is expensive, but some of the areas right out of the city, up in the hills, you can still get, a really large home for an affordable price. And that's made people rethink during this time. With COVID, do I want to be in a small space in the middle of the city, or do I want to be outside of the city and have a larger space and have a yard and have, more outdoor space? And a lot of people have been moving towards that. I mean, one remarkable thing that we really saw this year was all the vacation rental places and destinations like Big Bear and Palm Springs locally here. And those areas were on fire. Their rates went up, 20, 25%, because so many people were wanting to escape the city and go to these destinations, and people were even renting them. So we thought the Airbnb market would crash this year at the beginning, but it just exploded. And those areas' prices have really gone up. Yeah.
I mean, it's so amazing, right? Like, it's this kind of strange, unpredictable place where the market's at, where it's the opposite of is happening of what you're expecting. Like, you're like, oh my God, Airbnb is totally going to crash. It's like, no, it's friggin' booming because people are trying to get away, from the city. I have a friend of mine. She just bought a place she bought a 2-bedroom condo on the border of Palos Verdes and San Pedro. And she told me that she paid a little over $500,000 for it. I don't know what the square feet of it, but I was just like, is that reasonable for that kind of neighborhood?
Yeah, actually, my sister just sold her place right on the border. Same thing of San Pedro and Palos Verdes. It was a townhouse, 2-bedroom townhouse for 600,000. So
Maybe my girlfriend's the one who bought it from your sister.
maybe I hope so.
That's so funny.
Yeah, but it's like we have to consider if you're a renter right now, can you buy a property, and is that something that's possible for you? Because rents are so high, but interest rates are lower. So, I want to make sure we bring that up this year. Even though, prices were more expensive at the end of 2020 than they were at the beginning of 2020, it was more affordable to buy at the end of 2020. The money that you spend was actually less because interest rates came down a substantial amount that year. So unless you were paying cash, it would be more affordable to buy at the end of 2020. It was more affordable to buy at the end of 2020 than it has been in the last 4 years. So that's pretty amazing just based off of interest rates, because they're right around 3%. And they're incredibly low. And that makes, purchasing much more affordable than it was before. And you don't need 20% down. You can buy with, 3.5% down or 5% down. So,
but that's for a first time home buyer. Right?
Yeah, if you're purchasing, not even first time, just buying a home that you're going to live in, you can go with these programs where if you're a vet, 0 down. You don't need to have any money down. If you're buying under 850,000 and you want an FHA loan for a condo or a house, you can do 3.5% down. If you're buying under around $1 million, you can probably do 5% down. And then above that, maybe 10% for a while. So you don't really have to have the huge down payments. Like, that's what I find most people don't realize is I'm never going to buy in LA. It's too expensive because I can never save 20% down. I'm like, I know, I get it. It would be hard for me to do that, anyone to do that, but you don't have to do that. You can get in with a lot less.
Yeah. James here said he has a question. He said, are the extremely low interest rates keeping property demand high?
Yeah, James, they are. They're really keeping rates and the demand's very high because it's more affordable, and we expect rates to go up at some point. We were at a point where they're around like 2.4%. That was just briefly. Now they're back up around 3. We expect them to kind of stay around there for the next, year or so. So over this next year, property values are going to stay pretty consistent to where they have been. We don't expect them to go up as much as they did last year, and rates stay the same. So it should be a decent year to consider, purchasing some type of property.
Yeah, I mean, James just said, I just refinanced at 2%. I've seen advertisements for less. Wow.
Yeah, you could do less if it's, a 10-year loan or a 15-year loan, possibly. It depends on what that is, but if you're doing a 30-year, which most of my clients do, and I always recommend that, it's, refinancing right now is probably around like 2.75, something like that. But if you got two, that's amazing.
Who are these people who show up with cash and buy homes cash?
I know.
Who are these people, Anthony? Are they single? Are they available? Can I marry one of them? What is happening here?
I know, right? I need to send them your way.
What the hell, Anthony? I'm like, cash? Who's got $1 million cash lying around? What the hell?
A lot of people do. We have, and a lot of people think, oh, it's just international buyers that are buying in LA and they have cash and they're buying everything. It's not true. International buyers have come down substantially in the last 5 years. Only less than 2% of our deals in LA were from international buyers last year. So It's a very small amount. But there are people who are here. They're business owners that are doing well. They have the cash. Some of the buyers that I work with who are coming in with a great amount of cash, they're getting money from their parents. So their parents may be taking money out of the equity that they have in their home. They may live in a house, in San Pedro that's 1.2 million. They might refinance and take 500,000 out of it, give it to their kids, so they have that down payment. So the kids can buy a property and pay very little for their mortgage, and then the parents' mortgage will end up going up a little bit. So a lot of people are using the equity in their house as cash to buy an investment property, or to give it to their kids to buy. I wish, my parents would have done that for me. I'm ready to get out of my condo, Mom, move to a house.
Right? Exactly. Would you like buy a house in LA? Would you buy a house in West Hollywood? Like what would be your kind of next move?
Yeah, I mean, if you're not planning on moving in the next like 2 or 3 years, I would absolutely purchase a property. Prices may come down slightly at some point in the next couple of years. Yeah. Nothing substantial, but if they do, it's going to be really factored on interest rates moving. So overall, it doesn't matter, for you as your buying power, if you're buying now or if you buy in 3 years from now, if prices are lower in 3 years from now and interest rates are a little higher,
sure,
it's worse actually. You don't want to have to be wasting money on interest rates. I'm clear on that. You want to get it when the interest rates are the lowest. So
yeah. My plan last year, I was looking at homes in Vegas because I was going to Vegas a lot for work. I had a studio there, had my podcast was being run from there, and I'm like, man, I'm here every 2-3 weeks. I might as well just like look at investment property, like just buy a place, right? And of course, that all went to shit because the pandemic hit, and then of course, all that. As a producer, like all the live shows, all the live events, all the money coming in from there just disappeared, right? All of it that just disappeared. And it's like, what I'm wondering is like, are you seeing more and more people who come in and they're just like, I can I can put 3.5% down, but I don't know if I'm going to be able to sustain my job, and how do I pay my mortgage, like that kind of thing.
No, usually the people who are getting in, they know that they're going to be able to pay their mortgage. But I always tell them, look, the worst thing that could happen, right, is you have to move out and you can rent it, right? You can always rent it to someone. Airbnb is allowed. If you have a 2-bedroom and you have an extra bedroom, you can have a guest for the weekend. One of my neighbors does that every weekend. She rents out her guest room, and that helps her to pay her mortgage. Because she didn't want to sell it. She's like, I need to hang in there. This year's rough, but next year will be better because of this and that. So she's renting out one of her bedrooms, which is fine, and she's able to do that. So you can always be creative and do that, because you never want to sell unless you really, really have to. You want to hold on to properties as long as you can. Even if that means holding onto a property and renting it out and then buying something else, that's an amazing thing to do. So yeah, there's different ways, ways around it. Otherwise, you can always sell. If you have to sell, you can sell. But if there's any way that I can help people to not sell, I always bring that up first. When I go on a listing appointment, I'm like, why are you selling? Is there any way we can help you keep this property? And if there's not, then we'll list it. So,
is there a certain age group that is coming in and buying homes cash, Anthony? What's that age group?
Oh, well, yeah. So there are a lot of millennials and younger who are YouTube stars. Now we're getting a lot of people on TikTok building their name. They have a lot of cash coming in. I've met several people who are doing really well on YouTube. making $50,000 a month from their ads and so on, and they have cash. They've saved up cash and they're ready to buy. So those are young people. Overall, in the market this year, we expect about 40% of the buyers to be first-time buyers and for them to be millennials. So a lot of younger first-time buyers are coming in to purchase.
So then what is all this talk about? Young people, millennials can buy homes, they're struggling, they're living with their parents. So where does that come from then?
Oh yeah, there's plenty who are, but there's plenty who are doing well, right? For the amount of properties that we have for sale, the demand is much higher than what we have available. Mm-hmm. So there's still more properties that we'll see multiple offers on now. So there's still that demand is there. There's just not a lot for sale. If we get a slew of properties for sale, that may change, right? But as of right now, we're not. And I don't think that's going to change until the economy gets really strong. And then we have people who are move-up buyers, we call them. So people who are moving from a condo to a home or from a home to a larger home. We just don't have that right now in the market. Very few are able to do that. So they're staying in their home, they're remodeling. If they have a house, they're adding an ADU, a granny flat in the back that they could rent out, and converting a garage into a rental, or maybe for their in-laws or parents to move in. A lot of construction is happening on homes right now, not a lot of people moving up to a new home.
I mean, there is a condominium that's been building behind my building where I live. And besides the fact that it's a fucking nightmare because of the drilling and, banging that goes on all day. But what I've been fascinated by is that there's this one condominium building and there's another one across the street from me that's also. And what fascinates me is that during COVID, construction seems to have no effect. It does not seem to be affected by COVID. How come?
No, they were considered an essential worker right from the beginning. I know here in West Hollywood, so I'm always attending city council meetings. There was a lot of people complaining like, hey, what's going on with this? And the city understands that we need construction to keep going, but they need to obey by the regulations, by keeping their social distance, wearing masks, and so on. And if they can do that, they can continue to work. So they were deemed essential, and they still are. So it'll still happen.
But this whole conversation we were just having about not being enough inventory. So when you have all these condominiums that are like popping up, and I think West Hollywood, don't they have to go through the city of West Hollywood, and they have to get permission, and all the neighbors agree to it, and then you can build your condominium and all that. I mean, you have to go through a bit of a process. But that means if all these condominiums are popping up, that means inventory is increasing. That means that possibly property value would come down a little bit.
That's what we hope, or we just, not so much that property values will come down, but property values will stop going up and people's income can catch up to it. I don't think we're going to ever have enough inventory where property values will come down, enough being built. But this is the thing, we have way more jobs being created and people moving to LA than we do properties being built. So just because you see 10,000 units being built, it doesn't mean those are 10,000 units that we're adding to our inventory that's excess. No, we still may have 20,000 jobs that were created at that time and 20,000 people moving here, and we still have a deficit. Mm-hmm. So our city is doing so well, where we're growing at such a fast rate that we just can't keep up, more than other cities. That's why, LA is prices are so high, is because we're creating so many jobs. We have such a great demand for people to come here, but we're not building enough. And a lot of people have seen and treated LA like it's a suburb, like it's, Fresno, but it's not. It's a main metropolitan area, and we have to be denser. We have to build up. That's just what it is. If you don't like it, you have to move out of the city, unfortunately. Otherwise, the city is going to crumble and it's not going to be able to survive. It's a thriving metropolitan area. We have the Olympics coming. We have subways that are being expanded and expanded. We have to treat it like it's, a New York almost. And there has to be smart construction along these corridors where the transportation is and where the jobs is. So we have to encourage more being built.
So more, I would think more vertical construction more than anything.
Yeah, because hey, we're pretty much landlocked. There's not very many lots to build on, right. And not everyone is, wanting to move out to Magic Mountain and Valencia and those areas. The jobs and the fun is here, so we do need to build up. We do. I mean, for example, like Santa Monica Boulevard, there's very few residential projects in Santa Monica. To me, I'm pushing the city to have several buildings that are multi-use, where the bottom floor is commercial. and there's a restaurant, and there's a bank, and there's a grocery store, and then 5 floors up is all residential. But I want it to be residential that's for sale, that's small units. So I wrote an op-ed. If you're curious, you can check it out. It's buildsmallunits.com, and it'll take you to the article, buildsmallunits.com, and it'll explain all my reasons why we need to have small units to help with affordability. So we build these 5-story, 4-story buildings with small units that are there, and that's going to allow new wealth to be built in the city where there's affordable, studios, small 1-bedrooms, small 2-bedrooms that are for sale, that are on these corridors of Santa Monica Boulevard where people can walk everywhere, enjoy the city, but afford to live there. And you're not interrupting with neighborhoods and, challenging all those people who don't want, big buildings being built in their neighborhoods, of course. But if we can at least convert some of these main streets to be a mixed use of commercial and residential, that would be an amazing start. But we need to keep the units small, because the problem I see is in West Hollywood, a lot of the units that are being built are very large. So people are saying, oh, they're building luxury units. Well, it's luxury because it's large, and that's what makes them priced so high, because we base our real estate off of price per square foot. So if you have a $500 or 500 square foot unit versus a 5,000 square foot unit, it's the price per square foot is very different,
Right.
So.
Right. I mean, you just made a really good point about how people, like 20,000 people, 20,000 people coming in to 20,000 jobs, but like 10,000 units. My buddy Rick Overton, who's an actor and a comedian, and he lives in the Valley, and him and I were having this conversation about how there are moving trucks everywhere, especially in the Valley, where people are just moving out of LA, right? People are moving out to Texas, to Arizona, to more affordable places, to Colorado, because they get more bang for their buck. But I wonder, is that something that you're seeing, or is that not something that you're seeing?
There's been a big exodus from California. A lot of people are moving out because they can't afford it. Most of the people that are in LA who are moving to other places in California, like they're moving to the Inland Empire, they're moving to San Bernardino, Riverside, Palmdale. They're still staying in California. And then once you get to those outer areas, those areas are moving to other states like Arizona and Texas and Idaho and Florida even. But even though we have that exodus, we still have more people who are moving in than who are leaving. So we don't have that negative amount of people that are leaving. We still have a growth that's happening. And that's the problem. Since we have this growth, we have to build a lot more. Their vacancy rates are like so high. They're so low. So almost everything is full, and that doesn't give you as a renter looking for a place many options. So you have to play market value. If we had more places available and you can negotiate a little bit more, prices would come down for rentals, which actually is what's happening right now due to COVID. A lot of the rental prices have come down. So if you are looking for a rental, know that what you paid last year, you should be paying less now. You can renegotiate.
How much less?
So for example, in West Hollywood, like average that I was seeing for 1-bedroom was maybe $2,800. Now I'm seeing plenty of them for $2,300. That's a pretty substantial amount that's come down. Studios you could get for $1,700. Before they were like $2,100. And that's in prime West Hollywood, right? So, they're definitely coming down just in this last year.
But those are newer buildings, though, right, Anthony? Those are not rent control older buildings. Those rent prices that you're mentioning.
No, these are just any on average units that are on the market. They can be in a rent controlled building or not. So once someone who's in a rent controlled unit moves out, maybe they're paying $500 a month. Once they move out, the landlord's able to charge market rent. So that $500 1-bedroom may be worth $2,300 now, and they'll charge the $2,300. So it's not the new construction. There's not much new construction in West Hollywood. The bigger 1-bedrooms and the nicer ones and the newer ones, for sure, those are going to be $3,500 a month.
Sure. Sure, absolutely. I mean, Anthony, when you have people coming in and paying $3,500 a month for a 1-bedroom rental, I mean, to me, first of all, let me just start off by saying how much I absolutely despise paying rent. Let me just say, I want to build equity. I want to buy a place. Do you people come in and they're is that something that you try to encourage people to be buy a place, have equity in something rather than just renting this place out?
Yeah, this is my main mission, my main passion of real estate is I love helping people build wealth, and it's almost impossible to build wealth when you're renting. The number one way to build wealth in this country, and it's always been, it's through owning real estate. So you've got to figure out how to get in that game. And there's a couple obstacles that I see why people aren't doing it. If you're paying rent, there's definitely ways to get in. You have to realize you don't have to have a large down payment. And maybe you're in a one bedroom right now that's 1,200 square feet. Well, if you're buying, you might not be able to get into something for that same price. You might have to suck it up, get into something a little smaller, maybe 800 square feet, and at least know you're doing the right thing for your future. You're building wealth. You're setting yourself up for something that's very stable. When you're renting, your rent goes up every year, even if you're on rent control. When you're owning something, it never goes up, and eventually one day it disappears and goes to zero. Plus, you get tax write-offs. Plus, you have that equity that's building. There's so many positives that make owning real estate the number one wealth builder in this country. That yes, I'm like, hey, if you're renting, let's get you on that path. Maybe you can do it today. Maybe you can do it in 2 years from now. But let's figure out what that is and what that takes. I mean, I'm going to do a quick plug. I'm having a home buyer seminar. So if anyone out there wants to learn, just tune in. It's on February 4th. You can go to lahomebuyerSeminar.com. lahomebuyerSeminar.com. It's at 4 o'clock. It's about an hour, but we go through all the basics of what your credit needs to be, what your down payment options could be. What does it look like when you're negotiating repairs and inspections in a home? What are the hottest areas that are happening right now? All of those things change all the time. So lahomebuyerSeminar.com, you can register there, join us. It's an amazing group of people that we have. I have a couple lenders in there. We make it really fun, and it's just a good way to kind of just get on the path to be like, okay, maybe this is something I can do, or it might make you feel a little more comfortable about taking that next step to building your own wealth instead of your landlord's.
Right. 100%. I mean, and just like you said, right? Like owning property is really where the big, wealth building really is. I've noticed a few people moving out of my neighborhood, not a lot, but a few. Even even the building that I live in, we have majority of our building is empty. Like people just moved out. They were just like, and they can't seem to get new renters. I mean, it is a challenge right now. More and more people. Do you feel like when people move out, it doesn't even matter whatever these people are who are moving out and moving out of state, because there are plenty of people who are looking to come in. So it doesn't even matter.
Exactly. But at this point, they're not moving in as renters. So a lot of the people who come in to move in the city as renters, they're ambitious, they're young, they're in the entertainment industry, they're looking to make a name for themselves. Right now, that's not happening. There's not those opportunities there. So a lot of those people who were here doing that are moving home to their parents and moving in with their parents. So we saw a huge outflux of young people who are living here, just struggling LA people like all of us are, just trying to make it, how to move back in with their parents. So a lot of vacancies came up. It will change again. We'll see that new influx when the economy gets better, but it's still going to be a while. So if you are renting, I would talk to your landlord about renegotiating the rent. Pay your rent. You don't want to get in that point where, just because there's the moratorium of not having to pay your rent, being sued a year from now because you owe a year's worth of rent and when you could have paid it. Like, pay something, do what you can, pay that rent, but try to renegotiate. Maybe they'll say, hey, I want to stay here for another year, but I would be able to do that if my rent was $200 less. Now's the time to ask for that. Sign a new contract and ask for a little bit less, because a lot of landlords are doing that. They don't want their buildings vacant.
Right. Absolutely. This whole thing about now that, commercial properties are empty, and, is there a conversation that's happening, or is that something that you're possibly pushing for, to be like, hey, all this commercial real estate is just sitting there. How about we think about possibly turning into residential properties? That gives us more inventory towards residential.
Yeah, it is. And that's something that I've been advocating for. It's the state. The zoning laws don't allow it right now. Okay. So that's what the big issue is. So when I go to Sacramento, when I have all the public policy and government affairs meetings with different chamber of commerces and our association and so on. These are topics that we bring up. And there are laws that are trying to be written and passed, different bills, to say, let's change the zoning. If this is an old, outdated mall, this could work for residential. So there are a lot of bills out there that haven't passed yet, but are going to be discussed this year. So we'll see if that happens, but definitely we're pushing for that.
Yeah. I was just going to ask you that, is it on legislation? Is it on the legislative level? And it sounds like it is.
Yeah, I think there's demand. I think builders want to do it. Obviously, people will be able to sell it, but the zoning doesn't allow for it. So that has to happen at a local level and the state level.
Yeah. Anthony, West Hollywood does not allow Airbnb, right?
Correct. So the only way you can use Airbnb, like my neighbor does, is if you're renting out a room in your own house. So if you have a condo, a 2-bedroom condo, and you live in one, you can rent out the other room as long as you live there. If you have a house, you can rent out part of your house. But if you're renting out a full studio that you used to live in and now you're home with mom, you cannot Airbnb that studio. They will fine you. You will actually be evicted for doing that if your landlord finds out. So Airbnb, anything that you're renting, be careful. You will lose a lot of money doing that in the long run.
Why is that? Why does West Hollywood have beef with people Airbnb-ing their place? What's up with that?
Yeah, it's not just West Hollywood, LA, Santa Monica, everywhere does. When it first started, there was a lot of complaints from neighbors saying that there was always somebody new coming in next door to me. I didn't know who they were. I didn't feel safe. Their music was loud when my neighbor used to have soft music. It was just a disruption, and you never knew who you were going to get next door. So if you live in, apartments or condos, for sure, even houses, people didn't like someone new being next to them. They didn't like the change. So I don't know if the rules will loosen up at some point. I mean, I kind of hope they do, because I think we need those options. But as of right now, no. Los Angeles, Santa Monica, West Hollywood, Culver City, you can't do it.
Wow. I mean, Anthony, like more and more in West Hollywood, I don't think I've ever seen so many homeless people ever in West Hollywood. Just only in the past 2 years. I mean, you just go up around neighborhoods and you're just like, I can't recognize my neighborhood. Like, you see homeless encampments and it just breaks your heart. Like, I was passing by Brentwood. I mean, lined. Encampments lined. I mean, you're just like, this is Brentwood? Like, Brentwood is even more expensive than West Hollywood. And I'm just like, wow, if you're a homeowner there, aren't you just friggin' pissed? You're just like, what the hell is going on here?
Yeah, I mean, it's all over our city, and whether you're a homeowner or a renter, it's an issue because a lot of times it's a safety issue. A lot of the people that are homeless that we see have mental issues or drug problems. They're not people who are down on their luck, who are living in their cars. Those aren't the problems, but there's a lot of drug issues, a lot of mental patients that are out there, and we don't have places for them to go. We don't have these mental institutions like we used to have that they could go to and be taken care of. I do actually, Mona, a lot of charity work downtown with a lot of the homeless centers, and they can't force anyone to come in there. They bring someone in who has a mental issue or drug issue, and their rules are, if you want to have housing, you have to be in by a certain time. You have to stay here. Then during the day, you can leave, and so on. There's rules and there's structure to help them. But they say most of these people just leave and they don't come back. And it's impossible to treat them unless they're forced to stay there. And our laws don't allow anyone to say, you have to stay here 24 hours a day for 3 months. Like, it's almost like it's a prison. So there has to be some type of, legislation and kind of like mediation to say like what's humane and what's not. How can you have someone forced to stay in a home for 3 months or 6 months or a year? That's not a jail, that's humane. And we haven't got to that point yet, but that's what we really need because there's safety issues. I mean, in West Hollywood, we saw a guy with a knife come and stab someone in the 7-Eleven 2 blocks from us last year. And like, these things are happening. It's not just like that we don't want a tent on our corner. It's because of different safety issues. And it's a really big issue that has not been addressed yet. It's the mental issue and keeping people where they need to stay.
I think it's gonna like segue me into talking about Mayor Garcetti as a mayor and Governor Newsom as the governor of California. whom I have talked a lot of shit about because I have a lot of beef against these guys, because I feel like even before the pandemic hit, I thought they were just not doing a good job. They just haven't been doing a good job. So I think I have a two-part question. First part question is, what are your kind of thoughts on how Mayor Garcetti and Governor Newsom have handled the whole homeless situation? And second, one of the things that I always hear from my from my business owner friends is that Los Angeles makes business, for especially small business owners like yourself, doing business really, really difficult. And has that been your experience?
Yeah, I mean, I think both of them have done a pretty poor job as far as the homeless issue. A lot of it, I mean, in my opinion, is the whole mental issue and drug addiction and drug abuse part has not fully been addressed. Yeah. It takes a lot of money and a lot of guts, and nobody wants to be that person, especially Democrats coming in to say, yes, we want to force people to be in a home to get help and get recovery. It's like, it makes you look bad, but we need that. So there has to be some type of agreement between everyone that says, this is how it's going to work. Mm-hmm. And it's such a challenge, and nobody's addressing that. And it's not going to be fixed until that issue is addressed. Yeah. Because there's so many great programs out there for other people who are down on their luck, you know, whether you're young or old. There's so many great programs that people can get plugged into, and they can get out of that situation over time. But, you know, unless they're addressing that mental issue and the drug issues with homelessness, it's not gonna work. And I haven't seen that yet. I mean, I'm on a lot of calls with representatives that are you know, local legislators at the state level, our local, you know, state assemblymen, state senators, as well as our, you know, assemblymen that are at the national level, and nobody's bringing up the mental issues.
Why is that? Why do you think, on a more personal experience, so why do you think that? Because they don't want to take a stand where they're going to end up not getting elected because they've taken a harsh stance towards something where everybody's just like, I feel like everybody's like tiptoeing around the issue. Nobody wants to take a stand because they're going to come across as the bad guy, or they're going to come across like, oh, that's something a Republican would do. But somebody needs to make the hard decisions. I mean, this is a growing problem. And now with the moratorium expiring and stuff, I mean, thank God that Biden's going to be in office and the moratorium is going to extend and stuff. But I just fear, I'm just like, man, are we going to have more homeless people in the streets? I mean, we've already had people who lost homes because of COVID, right? They don't have jobs. Their landlords came and evicted them. I mean, it's just heartbreaking. So do you think, like, is that what it is? Like, these politicians just don't want to take a stance. But I feel like, because you don't take a stance, we're not going to reelect you because you've done such a crappy job. Like, you just said there is an organized effort now to recall Newsom. Yeah, I signed that petition because I want him gone. I think he's done.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of it's money, right? And nobody wants to spend the money, I guess, or to look bad. I mean, there was a show on Netflix, Ratchet, if you guys have seen that, where there are people that are in a mental institution, and it gives you that feel and sense of how archaic that was and how crazy it was for these people to be there, but they thought they were doing the best for these people at that time. Now, the same thing could be now too. It could be said where if you're putting people in these homes, are you doing the best for them? Some people will say yes, and some people will say no. And if you have this huge diverse, you know, issue where people are polarized on how they feel about that, it's bad for politics, and it's hard to get reelected too. So it's like, there needs to be some other type of commission that comes out and makes these recommendations, not the politicians, but they appoint some other commission that says this is how we do it and makes those hard decisions then, because otherwise I feel like it's never going to be done.
Emily, don't you think there is enough? I mean, look, before the pandemic hit, first of all, California is the 5th largest economy in the world. We're like bigger than most countries' economies. So, and we have been in surplus. So it's not like we didn't have the money. We've had the freaking money, right? So, I mean, like in New York, right? The governor of New York took the abandoned hotels and turned them into, you know, places where homeless can go and reside. Well, also with New York, there's also the weather issue, right? It snows and winter is brutal. It's not like that in LA. LA doesn't get that brutal, so people can still sleep in the streets, which still breaks your heart when you pass by them. You're just like, my God, you're a human being, right? You're somebody's child. Like, you don't deserve. You deserve dignity. Like, you deserve to be in a home. Like, you deserve help. Like, we have the means for it. We're the richest fucking country on the planet. If we don't have the money, then who has the money, right?
Exactly.
So I guess my question is, like, is that something that citizens of Los Angeles get together and they're like, hey, let's form a commission, right? That needs to be an independent homeless commission that makes these rules and and finds a way to enforce them.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. Maybe they have created something and they're working on something. I don't know, but I think the first start is working, because who you have the most access with, right? Do you have relationships with city council people? To me, that's local. That's something that we can all do no matter what city we live in this country. Start with your local city council members. Have these conversations with them. See what you can do at a local level. West Hollywood is very small. I know all the city council members. They're all on my phone. I can call and talk to them anytime. They all know me. We all have that ability. They're all very accessible. In LA, the same thing. It's much bigger, but you have access to your local city council member. And those are the people that I think we need to start with to put pressure on moving up. But something has to happen. The big money is not going to come from the city. It's going to come from the state and from, Washington, D.C. to make this happen. But the pressure and the ideas and these commissions can be formed locally to then be brought to a higher level. Yeah.
I mean, when you say that you can form this commission locally, are you talking about what? Individuals like yourself and me going, hey, we have about 5-10 people who are really passionate about this. And, we go to a local city council member and we say, hey, this is what we want to do. We want to try to find, form a commission or do something, and then have them go and propose it on a state level or on a federal level?
Yeah, so usually what will happen with issues, anybody can speak at any city council meeting. There's public comment at the beginning. So you can talk and say whatever you want. It's a time to get your voice heard to all of the city council members. And then you follow up with them after. So I've done things where, when I was talking about building small units, I wanted to make sure that that the zoning was changing, that people would be allowed to build a 400 square foot studio. Because right now you can't build a building of 50 studios. It's not allowed. It's crazy. So I brought it up at a city council meeting. I followed up with people after. The next meeting, I said it again. They agreed at that meeting to say, we want to start a study to find out if this is true, how this works, whatever. So they were willing to spend money to put a study that their staff will put together to investigate this more. So that would be the next step, them spending money to study that issue. So you have to be really specific what you're asking for. You can't get up there and complain. There's homeless people everywhere. I can't believe it. They're on my corner. They're throwing eggs at me, this and that. It's ridiculous. We have to do something. What can we do? No, you need to have an idea. You got to have something very specific. So if you have something, like I was saying, let's form a commission about how do we create some type of a mental hospital that would, take these people in and keep them there for a minimum of a year. Can we research that? Can we spend money on that? And then where does that go next? Then do we bring that to our, to Ben Allen, our local, state legislators, or does it need to go to Adam Schiff, to go to national? Who's next? But that's fine. We can figure that part out. But it has to start somewhere, and it's going to start locally with the city council. Right. With an idea. Please have an idea. Don't go there and complain, because it's a waste of everybody's time. Yeah.
So they're saying, hey, we know the problem. We're just not going to come up with the idea. Why don't you come up with the idea and bring it to us? And we'll see if we like it, then we'll invest money towards it. So Anthony, here's my question about what you just said. Like, they want to do a study. But Anthony, aren't there enough real estate agents to go and talk to, like yourself? And aren't you the kind of study? I mean, this is your bread and butter. This is what you do day in and day out. So why the fuck would they spend extra money to go and conduct a study and all that time wasted when they could just come to an expert like yourself and people like yourself? I don't understand.
Yeah, I know they can. And sometimes with the studies, because it takes staff hours and time to talk to me, right? So part of that money they're spending is the staff allocating time to talk to different realtors, to get information on this, to talk to doctors, to write up the report, to give a recommendation to the council. All of that takes, the staff's money. So part of that is what I'm saying is staff's time. But yeah, I mean, I think where we could really help the most in making a difference in the areas that we live in is having relationships with your city council members, right, and talking to them. letting it be known, what it's like in the real world for you. You're one of their citizens. They want to listen to you, and they will.
Anthony, I talked to a few friends who live, in LA, who live in Orange County, and I asked them, I'm like, and they make money, and I asked them, I'm like, would you buy a place here? And they're like, no, I do not want to invest money in LA. Not gonna buy property in LA. I'm like, why is that? I'm like, but you live here, your business here. I mean, they're like, no, they're like, you just don't get enough for your buck. Like, you will get more for your buck in Austin, Arizona, or elsewhere. So, that.
Yeah. So invest. So there's two conversations there. One is like, are you spending crazy amount of money on rent, living here and not owning, which is crazy. That doesn't make sense. You need to buy, even if you're only here for a couple of years, and then sell it and move out, or keep it and rent it and move out. But if you're looking for properties to invest, I host a group. It's called LA Multifamily Meetup. So another plug, lamultifamilymeetup.com. If you go there, every month we have speakers that we bring in that teach you how to invest and make money in Los Angeles. And you hear people who are doing it and how it's worked for them and what little nuances they have to learn. And it's like running a business. So you have to understand all the rent control rules. You have to understand what utilities you can charge for and how much and which ones you shouldn't. You have to know if you can build an ADU on an income property and how much that costs, how to maximize that profit. So it's really education on building a new business. There's plenty of ways to make money in Los Angeles investing in it. What a lot of people hear and think about first is like, oh, well, the GRMs are very different here than they are in other cities. And
sorry,
you're not going to be.
What's a GRM?
It's kind of like the balance between how much income you're going to be taking in from an income property to what your expenses are. So it's kind of what your profit is. It's called the gross rent multiplier. But maybe you're going to make an extra couple $100 on your investment a month in Austin than you will here for investing the same amount of money. Mm-hmm. However, the appreciation that happens in Los Angeles compared to these other cities is very different as well. So here, properties appreciate at a much higher level than they do at other areas. Other areas, the average for the country really is about 3% a year over time. In Los Angeles, it's much higher. So part of the income that you're going to be getting is going to be building that equity, having your property be worth more down the road. Eventually, the goal is you want to get that property, put it into a 1031 exchange, sell it, and buy another property, and keep moving up and keep getting bigger properties with more and more units. And it's possible to do that without having to spend.
Yeah. My plan, Anthony, was that I was going to get an affordable, it was like a 3-bedroom house I was getting in, and 2 bedrooms, had their own balcony, has their own parking garage and a gated community with swimming pool and everything. How much was this place that I checked out? It was like barely $400,000, barely, right? And it was beautiful. It was a really nice place. And my plan was I'm like, okay, great. I'll buy it. I'll rent it out. Let the place pay itself off, right? Let it build equity. And then at some point, take some of the equity out, put the down payment here, and then buy a place here. So now I have 2 properties, right? At least that was the plan, and until the pandemic came and gave me the middle finger.
Where was this property located?
Sorry, say that again.
Where was the property located?
It was in Henderson, in Vegas.
Okay.
Yeah. So I was that was the plan. But I actually wanted to ask you, for a first-time home buyer, is it better to buy an investment property, or is it better to buy a house you're going to live in, and then if you need extra money, you can rent a room out or two to make it up with Airbnb?
Yeah, I would say put all your money into what you're going to be living in. Buy something to live in. Don't buy an investment property first. There's very few situations that I would recommend for someone to buy an investment property first. If you're living in LA, buy something in LA that you're going to be living in. Stop paying rent. All of that, every single dollar you pay in rent is just being burnt and thrown away. Yep. Every single dollar. In your mortgage, no, some of the money is going towards interest and you're getting a tax return from that, a tax credit, right? Mm-hmm. Some of the money is actually just going into paying off the principal, and you get 100% of those dollars back. So it's like a forced savings account. You're putting some of those dollars into a forced savings account. Some of those dollars you're putting in to help you save money on taxes. And then some of those dollars you're not going to get back. But very few of them you're not. When you're renting, all of them you're not.
That's right. That's 100% no equity. There's 100% nothing, like nothing.
No
It's just
benefit, nothing.
yeah, you just burn it. Karen, Karen's here. Hi, Karen. Karen said problem is police hands are tied. Karen's the best. Hey, Karen. Karen said police hands are tied. It was a felony and now it's a misdemeanor, so you can't hold them. They get picked up and let out the next day. Yeah, I mean, I had a situation, Anthony. I came to my place. This is like not last. It was earlier, like maybe earlier last year. I came to my building because it doesn't have gates because my landlord's a fucking cheap ass and refuses to put them. And we've complained multiple times about security issues and stuff like that. He doesn't care. But I come to my parking garage and there's this homeless dude sitting there with a giant metal weapon in his hand. He's sitting in my parking spot. And I was like, oh my God, that's my spot. Can you move? And he goes to me, when you get out, I'm going to beat the shit out of you with this pipe, right? So I freak out and I call the cops and the cops come, right? And so after he told me that and he saw me like calling the cops, he left. And then the cops had to go chase him down on Santa Monica Boulevard. Turns out that he had already assaulted someone with that pipe. Had been looking for him. And he had like a $70,000 bail on him.
Yeah.
And then you're just like, okay, like, what is going on here? This is madness, or somebody wielding a machete. Like, do you have the Citizen app, Anthony? Do you have the Citizen app?
No, I don't want anything to do with that. that is definitely Mona's rants on steroids. I do not need to hear my neighbor complaining about my other neighbor's trash being left on the street. No.
No, but it's not. No, that's the Nextdoor app. The Citizen app is much more intense.
Oh God!
Like one morning I woke up and Citizen app gave me a message. It's like somebody's wielding a machete 300 feet from you. I'm like, are you fucking kidding me? I was gonna take my dog for a walk, and it's just like somebody's wielding a machete by you, and I was like, okay, that's comforting. That's really great, How has it been for you, Anthony? I mean, you're in WeHo. Have you seen some of your stuff around your neighborhood kind of decline a little bit? How has it been for you?
Yeah, I mean, just the whole living experience has declined, right? I mean, with everything being shut down, having, in my own office, having homeless people come in and start yelling at me in the middle of the day or mooning me outside. Just
nice.
real nice things coming in and spitting, or it's just, it's like that here. It's like that everywhere. Every city I talk to friends in, it's the same thing. And it's a big issue that, I don't know, maybe the Biden administration will be able to address at some level. I mean, at that, having new mental hospitals and these drug addiction programs, it has to come from, the highest level up to really make it work. Because it's not just us, it's really everybody. It's so sad.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's changed everywhere, It really has.
When you say everywhere, you mean everywhere in where? Which cities are you referring to?
All cities. I mean, every friend that I have anywhere in San Francisco, in Seattle, in Austin, in some of these smaller cities in Orange County, it doesn't matter.
San Francisco is out of control, man. Wow. Mayor London Breed, who I have met because I had the pleasure of emceeing the Women's March in San Francisco in 2019. So I got a chance to meet her. I got a chance to hang out with Representative Barbara Lee, and Nancy Pelosi was there. It was pretty great. And I remember, so after that, I think last year, Mayor London Breed came out and said that she's a trip. She went to all the wealthy people in San Francisco. She's like, how about we come to your wealthy neighborhood and put these, affordable housing for the homeless people, and people freaked the fuck out. They were like, are you fucking kidding me? No way. Like, Nancy Pelosi lives in Pacific Heights. She has multiple expensive properties. She's like, no way in fucking hell am I going to let you put an outhouse or cheap housing next to these multi-million-dollar homes. So what do you think is what is the point to this? Is what I'm trying to understand. When somebody like Mayor London Breed comes out and says, hey, let's put this in an expensive property, doesn't that drive the property value down, Anthony?
I mean, to an extent it could. It depends on, as long as the neighborhood's still safe and there's not people loitering and, littering and, having any kind of thing crazy going on outside. It could and it couldn't. I mean, there's plenty of homeless housing that are in neighborhoods that people doesn't bother them at all. and it's perfectly safe, and it doesn't affect the housing prices. So we have to have them, and we don't have room to do them. So wherever we have room, that's where it's going to go. Unless, I hear people say, just why don't you just put up tents in Palmdale and ship everyone out there? And that's another humane question. Is it okay to do that or not? Some people would say yes, absolutely. Put them out there, have them the food, get them rehabilitated, and then have a program to bring them back. And other people are like, no, you're taking them from their neighborhoods and what they're familiar with. They're used to being in West Hollywood now, and this is their home and what they're used to. You can't break that up for them. It's not right. So it's just there's two very different thought processes going on, and it's tough,
Yeah. I mean,
a standard test. Like, if you cannot pass this test, you go to this place, and it's as simple as that. And then when you pass this test, again, you go to the next level where you can go back to this place, or we put you in, a halfway home, or we help you pay your rent for the next year, or different programs. But there just has to be real clear standards so people know that it's, this is the process, and the end goal is to get them back into the communities.
Anthony, the more I listen to you, the more I realize that more and more it just boils down to legislation. More and more. It just really does. It really is something that needs to happen more on a federal and state level. That's the only way you can enforce it, and that's the only way you can mandate it for it to happen in the way that people want it to happen. Where look, I don't want a homeless person who has mental issues or drug addiction issues to be punished. I mean, that's not a crime. To be homeless is not a crime, right? Somebody is clearly going through struggling something. Like, let's help them out. But then the question is, okay, well, there's no law, there's no legislation of any kind that mandates or gives any kind of guidance of any kind of how to handle people like that. Like, what do you do? It's tough. Karen is saying Upper West Side, New York is in trouble with homeless and crime, even though they are providing hotels. Yeah, again, legislation.
People don't want to stay there. And again, it's the people who have drug problems and mental issues. They don't want to stay. Even though they have a place to go, they don't go. And they don't want to stay there. So that's the point, again, where we need to force people to stay in certain places until they can pass some type of medical test that someone says, okay, you're mentally sound to go to the next place.
Right. It almost feels like there needs to be like homeless home, and it needs to be divided up by what you're going through. If you're just down on your luck and you just got kicked out, great. That there's a perfectly fine people like yourself who are in the same situation as you. Put them in a certain place. Hey, you have drug addiction? Okay, this is the place dedicated just for drug addicts. This is you get treatments here. Blah blah blah. Oh, this is a place dedicated just for people suffering from mental health issues. Let's just give them this, provide them with help, provide them with social workers, whatever needs to be done to help them out. What do you think of that?
Yeah, no, absolutely. And they do have that to some extent now. There's definitely places that are people that are just down on their luck and that they're getting help in one way. There's a separate area for drug people, but they're not forced to stay there. So a lot of these people will go there for a minute, and then they'll leave. Same thing with the mental issues. That's the hardest one, where people just won't check in and be at a regular program. And they disappear. So those two need some help. I mean, we've all had experiences where we see a homeless person and you happen to have, an extra piece of bread with you or whatever it is, and you're like, oh, here, have this. Oh, no, I can't have that. It has chocolate in it. Or, oh no, I don't want a burrito, but do you have any cash? And it's a mental issue problem. They're hungry. They probably have not ate, but they won't accept anything. It's just you can't help that unless you have professionals and medicine, and it's not going to happen at a normal homeless shelter.
And also, this is Los Angeles, so our homeless people are gluten free. So let's get that out.
Oh yeah, I've had them tell me everything. Yeah,
they may be homeless, but they have standards. Okay, when it comes to their diets, they're just like a little bit off track, but that guy Jake Anjali, that douchebag who was wearing the horns at the Capitol diet.
Yeah.
I'm on a shaman diet. I have to be an organic diet. You know what? Why don't you just eat shit, asshole? Like, you're the ones who went. What do you mean? Oh, I'm on a shaman. I haven't eaten anything. Grown-ass man has his mother speaking for him. He hasn't eaten anything since Friday. Oh, well, too fucking bad.
Yep.
Anjali, fucking figure that shit out. Like, really? but that is such a bougie thing to be like, I have to eat organic meal. It's like, oh, we're gonna get your fucking meal from Whole Foods now? Seriously, right?
Yeah.
Like,
Organic, that just does not make sense. I mean,
what?
if someone has a religious reason for a special diet, I get it. But organic, that was just too crazy.
I'm like, no holy book has just been that thou shalt eat organic. Like, nobody's saying that. There is no line in Bible that is just like thou shalt eat organic all throughout your life. Nobody's saying this. This is ridiculous at this point.
No. And all those tattoos and markings and everything he has, I'm sure that's not organic. That's putting toxins into your body. I mean, come on.
Yeah, like, and screaming like an animal, like, stop it.
Yeah.
Stop it. Yeah,
No.
I'm on a shaman diet. I'm like, you're a douche nozzle.
Yeah, he's a good one.
I can't stand these people. So Anthony, what we're gonna start wrapping up. I wanted to ask you, do you property values are going up in LA, but any which way you cut this, you're encouraging people to go out and consider buying rather than renting.
Yeah, absolutely. It's the number one way, again, to build wealth in this country is owning real estate. So you got to get on that path. You got to figure that out. And it's easier than a lot of people think. You don't need 20% down. You don't have to have perfect credit. You might have to suck up your ego a little bit and move to a slightly smaller place or a little different neighborhood, but it's worth it. You're worth it. For the long run, to build your own wealth, you have to do it. And the longer you wait, the harder it's going to be and the less wealth you're going to build. The harder your life is going to be down the road when you're going to need it more later than you do now. You're going to need that wealth at some point. Yeah. It's like, I can't imagine what my family would have done if they didn't own a home. They when they bought their first home, they struggled and did whatever they could to like get into that home and cut back on traveling and doing all these different things so that they could have a home to own. And several years later, there was a big recession and my dad's business was hurt tremendously. I remember my mom just making soups forever, like always having soup, big pot of soup lasting weeks and weeks and weeks. Yeah. And, he was able to take some money out of the house, I found out later, to at least keep us floating, during that time when his business was so down, because at that point, 9 years later from when he bought it, he had some equity in that home. And that really helped, our family to survive. If we were renters, we would not have had that option. Our rents would have kept going up and we wouldn't have had any of that wealth anywhere when we really needed it. And we would have been really out of luck. So you never know when you're going to need that wealth. And you have to get on a path to building it because, you're worth it. You're going to need it one day for sure.
Yeah. And then you were talking about people going and, now, so let's say like 8 months from now, everybody's vaccinated, business are opening back up. Do you think like people are like commercial real estate? Do you think it's going to like just pick back up kind of where it left off, or it's going to kind of metamorphosize?
I think it's going to be a combination of both. I think storefronts, the businesses that we see in the locations that we're used to going to, there'll be new innovations. I feel like it's going to be the roaring 20s again, where we'll have a lot of innovation, a lot of new restaurants, a lot of new businesses coming out and people wanting to, be out there again and be social more than they ever have. So those storefronts, I think, are going to go quick and our new businesses will come in and we're going to have a great time with that. But a lot of the office spaces, I think, will change. I think the way that they're laid out, the amount of space that's out there, all of that's going to change. I think certain types of malls and things aren't going to exist anymore in some of these big shopping centers for certain types of big chain businesses are not going to happen. I mean, COVID really helped accelerate a lot of trends that were already happening. And this is just one of them, so there's going to be some change and there's going to be some good stuff. So I'm ready to like party. Let's get the roaring 20s. You got to teach me how to do those Charleston dances and all that. I'm ready for it.
Well, Anthony, your business is mostly focused on residential, though, not so much commercial, right?
Yeah, we do storefront leases, but we don't do like big office buildings or warehouses or that. We do a lot of multifamily, tons, apartment buildings and investments, but not so much, big commercial spaces. No.
Yeah. I mean, traditionally, is there more money in residential real estate, or is there traditionally more money in commercial real estate?
Oh, it's totally different. I mean, a commercial deal is obviously going to be much more expensive than it will for a residential deal, but the volume is just not there. Like it's just different. Yeah, you can't really compare them.
Yeah, I bet. I wanted to actually ask you. I know I asked you the question earlier, then we got distracted by a bunch of other questions. That you as a business owner, you've had your business for how long now?
I've had my business almost 20 years. So I've got my license almost 20 years ago. My office, The Collective, we just celebrated our 7-year anniversary a few months ago.
Wow, congrats.
Yeah.
7 years you've had The Collective.
Yeah, 7 years.
But before that, you were working for other people and just working independently.
Yeah, before that I was a manager for a couple other of like the larger offices in LA. And then I decided to open up my own firm and give a little bit more customer service to the clients and focus more on the passion of helping people build wealth rather than just selling houses. And it's more exciting for me that way.
Yeah, I mean, for you, right? For you as a real estate agent, for you, do you feel like opening a business, conducting your business in LA, was there a lot of red tape to cut through, a lot of bureaucracy, like, oh, you have to do this, and then your office is 2 inches a little to this, and
Yes, I signed a lease, and a year later I opened my business, and I did not put up a single wall. And because of all the red tape with the city, it was ridiculous. I had a full year going through all these different permits. So they go into the bathroom, and the bathroom wasn't ADA compliant by 2 inches, like you just said, 2 inches. This is a true story. I had to completely demo the bathroom. Then when they demoed the bathroom, they found out that underneath the slab needed to be redone. So I needed to have an architect and a designer come out to do that. That was another 2 months. That was another $15,000. All these little things that cost me as a small business to do, I spent about $200,000 that year trying to get this business up and running, not making a single dollar from the space by doing very little. I painted, I put up a few new light fixtures, I had to redo that bathroom. That's it. I didn't do anything else. Nothing else, and it cost me that much money and that much time. So yeah, it's really rough starting out as a new business. Yeah.
I mean, this is a thing that I hear from, even like I have a friend of mine who owns a cannabis business, and he was just telling me what an absolute nightmare it is as a small business owner to be in Los Angeles for the amount of red tape that there's there. Do you think is that because of that, again, goes back to legislation? That has to do with legislation again, correct?
Yeah, absolutely. And most of that legislation is local, with the city itself, with West Hollywood, with Los Angeles, Santa Monica. All these cities have a lot of red tape for cities, especially cannabis businesses, obviously. But, for any business overall, West Hollywood, I do have to say, since I've been here for 7 years, it has gotten better. It's easier. Things can get done quicker, but it's still expensive. It's still rough, to start. So support your local businesses as much as you can. They need it. Yeah.
Well, I mean, look, I'm all about supporting the mom and pop shops. Like if I have a choice between buying coffee at a local, coffee shop than Starbucks, I'm gonna go to a local coffee shop. Like I'm gonna spend that $5 at Starbucks anyways. I'd rather give it to my local coffee shop.
Yeah, and if you're ordering food, if you can pick it up, it's so much better for the restaurant. When you order on Postmates, 30% of the bill goes to Postmates.
Whoa!
And the restaurant only keeps the 70%. 30% goes to Postmates. So the restaurant loses a lot of money. And most restaurants will charge more for their items on Postmates. So if you really want to support local, like if you can go pick up your own food at these local restaurants, at least for the next few months, and then later do Postmates and have that convenience. But pick up from these places because they really need that.
I already do that, Anthony, but thank you for that.
I was guilty. I was getting lazy for a while and just ordering Postmates. But when I found that, I was like, oh, no.
30%, dude, that's a lot. I went to buy my weed at on Santa Monica Boulevard to my Zen Healing. Shout out to Zen Healing because I like those guys. How much? 33% tax.
Oh, yeah.
And they're like, oh, yeah, that's because it's West Hollywood. I'm like, oh, my God. what must it cost to open up a cannabis business? Holy shit.
Yeah, and there's so many of them. Like it's competitive. I don't think they're all going to survive, this year. Some of them are branded and are doing really well and are packed all the time, and others just aren't. I mean, like any business, right? But that one is a tough one to get started with unless you have a big following right away.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What about you? Have you been really busy in 2020? How has business been for you?
I've been doing so much prep work. I completely redid our office's website, helping agents get all their sites up, reconnecting with a lot of relationships that I've had, redoing my plans for social media. I started a YouTube channel for the office and getting videos up there. So a lot of prep work for the year and some showings, some real estate related stuff, but not much yet. Typically December, January is pretty slow real estate wise, so it's a great time to prepare and get ready. So I've been working 12 hours a day, don't get me wrong.
I bet you are, Anthony. I know the workaholic you are. One workaholic knows another workaholic.
Yeah, I'm heading to North Hollywood next to open up a unit and show a buyer. So I'm gonna keep it up tonight till 9 o'clock.
Does your agency only deal with places around just West Hollywood, or do you guys are you up in the valley too? Like what places are you guys covered?
Everywhere. It's really based off of the agent. So some of my agents are from the Inland Empire and they have relationships there and we'll do stuff out there. Some are from Orange County and the relationships are there. I have one guy who lives in Vegas and here, and his family and all of his contacts are Northern California, so he does business there. So we're really spread out. A majority of the business is greater LA. So all over LA County, absolutely. And then once in a while outside of LA County. Yeah, I'll be in Temecula next weekend.
Oh, wow. You really are all over. Anthony, this has been such a great, informative conversation. So thank you very much. Where can we follow the Collective Realty? Are you guys on social media? Please plug it away.
Yeah, absolutely. Please follow us. If you're looking for education, just search the Collective Realty on YouTube. We have great videos and we'll keep adding them there. If you're fun social media kind of place, Instagram is great. The Collective Realty on Instagram for a lot of great articles. We do a lot of stuff on Twitter at the Collective RE. And our Facebook page, The Collective Realty as well. We'll post a lot of events there. And our new website, that's where everything you can find. Just thecollectiverealty.com. We have videos, we have YouTube channels there, we have articles, all kinds of stuff at The Collective Realty. If you want to just search homes for fun, you can see all the homes on the MLS on our site. So, yeah.
Awesome. Anthony, I love you. I adore you. Thank you very much for this time. And for
Mona, I love you. You're amazing.
Thank you so much. I will talk to you soon, my friend. Stay safe out there.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye. That was the lovely Anthony Boland. That was just such fantastic information. I learned so much. I'm sure you guys learned so much. You guys, you can also, like Anthony mentioned, you can go to the collectiverealty.com. They have everything there. If you're looking for homes for fun, you can follow them, educational. There's a lot of amazing resources that Anthony's website offers. I personally know because I've been on it multiple times. And if you haven't subscribed to my YouTube channel, you can go to youtube.com/Mona Sheikh, which is my last name, comedian. And I'm also on TikTok, you guys. I'm trying to put out new content every day on TikTok. So you can follow me on Mona Sheikh Comedian. On TikTok, I'm on Instagram and Twitter at Mona's Comedy, and of course on Facebook at Mona Sheikh Comedian. I will be back with a brand new guest tomorrow. Have a good night. Stay safe out there. Wear your masks and wear your condoms if you're out there dating people. Have a good night.